Lieutenant Commander Sarah Mitchell stood at the edge of the training ground, watching her team practice their shooting drills. The morning sun cast long shadows across the sandy terrain of Naval Amphibious Base Coronado. At 28, she was the youngest female officer to ever command a SEAL sniper unit, a fact that seemed to follow her everywhere like an unwelcome shadow. The sound of boots crunching on gravel made her turn. Chief Petty Officer Jake Morrison approached with his usual swagger, flanked by 3 other SEALs from Bravo Team. Morrison had been vocal about his opinions regarding women in combat roles, especially in elite units like theirs. His weathered face wore the same skeptical expression she had grown accustomed to over the past 6 months since taking command. "Commander," Morrison said with a mock salute, "heard you're leading the next deployment to Syria. Hope you're ready for the real deal, not just these playground exercises." His companions chuckled, their eyes filled with doubt and barely concealed resentment. Sarah maintained her composure, something she had perfected through years of similar encounters. "Chief Morrison, I trust your team is prepared for the mission briefing at 1400 hours. We'll be discussing infiltration routes and target identification protocols." Morrison stepped closer, his voice dropping to a whisper that only she could hear. "Listen, lady, I've been doing this for 12 years. I've seen good men die because someone wasn't ready for the pressure. This isn't about being politically correct or breaking barriers. This is about survival." The words stung because Sarah knew they came from a place of genuine concern, twisted though it was by prejudice. She had heard variations of this speech countless times during her 8-year military career. From her early days at the Naval Academy, where male classmates questioned whether she could handle the physical demands, to her time in basic underwater demolition training, where instructors pushed her twice as hard as everyone else, waiting for her to quit. But Sarah had never quit anything in her life. Growing up in rural Montana, she had learned to hunt with her father before she could properly tie her shoes. By age 12, she could hit a target at 300 yards with her grandfather's old hunting rifle. Her parents, both military veterans themselves, had instilled in her a sense of duty and determination that ran deeper than any criticism could reach. After Morrison and his group walked away, Sarah returned her attention to the training exercise. Petty Officer Lisa Chen, one of the few other women in the unit, approached with the day's performance reports. Chen had been Sarah's most reliable ally since taking command, someone who understood the unique challenges they faced. "The new recruits are improving," Chen reported, handing over the tablets containing marksmanship scores. "Thompson and Rodriguez are showing exceptional progress with long-range targeting. Williams still needs work on wind calculation adjustments." Sarah nodded, scanning the data. Her unit consisted of 16 highly trained operators, only 3 of whom were women. The rest ranged from seasoned veterans like Morrison to fresh-faced recruits eager to prove themselves. Managing such a diverse group required constant balancing between maintaining authority and building trust. The afternoon briefing room was filled with tension as Sarah outlined their upcoming mission. Intelligence had identified a high-value target in northern Syria, a terrorist leader responsible for coordinating attacks against coalition forces. The mission would require precise coordination between air support, ground teams, and sniper overwatch. "Our objective is Ahmad Hassan," Sarah explained, pointing to satellite images displayed on the large screen. "He's been operating from this compound for the past 3 weeks. Intelligence suggests he's planning to relocate within the next 72 hours. Sergeant First Class David Park raised his hand. "Commander, what's our estimated time on target?" "The compound is heavily fortified, and will need at least 6 hours to establish proper overwatch positions." "Excellent question, Park. We'll be inserting via helicopter at 0200 hours, giving us a 4-hour window to reach our positions before dawn. The primary sniper team will establish overwatch on this ridgeline, approximately 800 meters from the target building." Morrison leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. 800 meters in mountainous terrain with potential for shifting winds. That's a challenging shot even for experienced operators. "Are you planning to take the primary position, Commander?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Every person in the room understood the implications. Morrison was questioning not just her tactical decision-making but her fundamental qualifications as a sniper. Sarah met his gaze steadily, her voice remaining calm and professional. I'll be taking the primary overwatch position, yes. Petty Officer Chen will serve as spotter, with Sergeant Park providing security from our 6 o'clock position. The secondary team will establish position on the eastern ridge to cover potential escape routes. After the briefing, Sarah remained in the empty conference room, studying the mission parameters one more time. The compound layout was complex, with multiple buildings and natural cover that would challenge even the most skilled marksman. She had run similar operations before, but never under such scrutiny from her own team. Her phone buzzed with a text from her younger brother Michael, currently serving as an Army Ranger in Afghanistan. "Heard you got the Syria mission. Dad would be proud. Show them what Mitchell family marksmanship looks like." The message brought a smile to her face. Her father had passed away 2 years ago, just months before she received her promotion to lieutenant commander. He had been her biggest supporter and harshest critic, pushing her to excel not because she was a woman trying to prove herself, but because she was a soldier with a job to do. That evening, Sarah spent 2 hours at the base shooting range, fine-tuning her rifle and running through various wind and distance calculations. The M110 semi-automatic sniper system felt like an extension of her body after years of training. Each shot was placed with mechanical precision, hitting targets at distances ranging from 400 to 1,000 meters. Corpsman Second Class Maria Santos approached during one of her shooting sessions. Santos was part of the medical team assigned to their unit, a soft-spoken woman from Texas who had earned respect through her calm competence under pressure. "Commander, mind if I ask you something?" Santos said, settling down beside Sarah as she cleaned her rifle. "What's on your mind, Santos? How do you deal with it? The constant questioning, the need to prove yourself over and over again? Sometimes I feel like no matter how well I perform, there's always someone waiting for me to fail." Sarah paused in her cleaning routine, considering her response carefully. This was a conversation she had with herself regularly, and she knew Santos was struggling with similar doubts. "I learned early that trying to prove something to people who don't want to be convinced is a waste of energy," Sarah said finally. "The only person I need to prove anything to is the one looking back at me in the mirror. If I know I'm prepared, if I know I've done everything possible to ensure mission success and team safety, then their opinions become irrelevant." Santos nodded thoughtfully. "But doesn't it ever get to you? Morrison's comments, the way some of them look at us like we don't belong?" "Of course it does. I'm human. But anger and frustration are luxuries we can't afford in our line of work. Those emotions cloud judgment and compromise decision-making. So I channel that energy into preparation and training. Let them doubt me. When the time comes, my rifle will speak for itself." The next morning brought news that would accelerate their timeline. Intelligence reports indicated that Hassan was planning to move his operation within the next 48 hours, not the 72 hours originally estimated. The mission launch was moved up by 12 hours, compressing their preparation time and adding pressure to an already challenging operation. As Sarah reviewed the updated intelligence with her team leaders, she noticed Morrison watching her carefully. His expression had shifted from open skepticism to something more complex, a mixture of curiosity and grudging attention. Perhaps he was beginning to recognize that her approach to mission planning was thorough and professional, regardless of his personal opinions about women in combat. The equipment check revealed everything in perfect order. Sarah's rifle was zeroed and ready, her scope calibrated for the expected range and environmental conditions. The team's communication systems were tested and functioning normally. Medical supplies, ammunition, and emergency equipment were distributed according to protocol. That afternoon, Sarah received an unexpected visit from Colonel James Hartford, the base commander. Hartford had been her mentor during her early years as an officer, a gruff but fair leader who had supported her advancement through the ranks. "Sarah, I wanted to speak with you before you ship out," Hartford said, closing the door to her office. "I've been hearing some concerning reports about team cohesion. Are Morrison and his group going to be a problem on this mission?" Sarah had anticipated this conversation. Word traveled fast in the tight-knit SEAL community, and Hartford's intelligence network was particularly effective. "Sir, Chief Morrison has expressed his concerns about my leadership, but he's a professional. When we're in the field, I'm confident he'll perform his duties according to standard protocols. Hartford studied her face carefully. That's not what I asked, and you know it. I'm asking if his attitude is affecting team morale and mission readiness. Colonel, every leader faces challenges with team dynamics. Morrison's skepticism isn't unusual, and it's not insurmountable. The mission parameters are clear, roles are assigned, and everyone knows their responsibilities. If there are issues in the field, I'll address them appropriately. Hartford nodded slowly. I've watched you develop as an officer, Sarah. You have exceptional skills and sound judgment. But this mission is high profile, and there are people in Washington watching how it unfolds. A successful operation will open doors for other qualified women in special operations. A failure will set back those opportunities by years. The weight of that statement settled on Sarah's shoulders like a heavy pack. She understood that she wasn't just representing herself or her unit, but all the women who might follow in her path. The pressure was enormous, but it was also familiar. She had carried similar burdens throughout her career. As evening approached, Sarah made her final preparations. She wrote letters to her mother and brother, a tradition she had maintained before every dangerous mission. The letters contained words of love and gratitude, along with instructions for her personal affairs should something go wrong. Her equipment was laid out with military precision: rifle, scope, ammunition, communication gear, medical supplies, food, and water. Each item had been checked multiple times, but she ran through the list once more. In the field, equipment failure could mean the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure. The pre-mission briefing was scheduled for 0500 hours, followed by helicopter transport to the insertion point. Sarah reviewed the satellite imagery one final time, memorizing landmarks and calculating distances to potential targets. The compound where Hassan was reportedly hiding sat in a valley surrounded by rocky hills, providing excellent overwatch positions but challenging approach routes. As she prepared for what might be the most important mission of her career, Sarah reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. From that little girl shooting tin cans in Montana to commanding an elite sniper unit in one of the world's most dangerous regions, every step had been earned through dedication and sacrifice. Tomorrow would bring the ultimate test of her skills and leadership. In a few short hours, she would have the opportunity to prove that excellence knows no gender, that capability matters more than prejudice. The mocking voices and skeptical looks would fade away, replaced by the cold mathematics of precision shooting and the unforgiving reality of combat operations. Sarah Mitchell was ready to let her rifle do the talking. The helicopter's rotors cut through the pre-dawn darkness as Sarah's team flew toward their insertion point in northern Syria. The UH-60 Black Hawk carried 12 operators, their equipment secured and faces painted with camouflage. Sarah sat near the door, checking her gear one final time while monitoring radio communications from the pilot. 5 minutes to insertion, the crew chief announced over the intercom. Weather conditions are favorable, minimal wind at the landing zone. Sarah looked across the cabin at her team members. Morrison sat opposite her, his expression focused and professional now that they were operational. Whatever personal reservations he harbored about her leadership had been set aside for the mission. Chen was reviewing target photographs on her tablet, memorizing facial features and identifying markers that would help with positive identification. The helicopter descended rapidly, using the natural terrain to mask its approach from potential enemy surveillance. Sarah felt the familiar rush of adrenaline that came with insertion operations. This was what she had trained for, what every hour on the shooting range and every tactical exercise had prepared her to do. 30 seconds, the pilot called out. The team moved with practiced efficiency as the helicopter touched down in a small clearing surrounded by rocky outcroppings. Sarah was first out, establishing security while the rest of the team disembarked with their equipment. The helicopter departed within 45 seconds, leaving them alone in hostile territory. "Comms check," Sarah whispered into her radio, receiving confirmation from all team members. "Move to Rally Point Alpha." The team moved through the darkness like shadows, using night vision equipment to navigate the treacherous terrain. Their target compound was 4 kilometers away, requiring a careful approach through rocky hills and sparse vegetation. Intelligence reports indicated the area was patrolled by Hassan's security forces, making stealth essential. After 2 hours of careful movement, they reached the primary overwatch position on the ridge overlooking the target compound. Sarah and Chen established their sniper position while Park set up security behind them. The view was perfect, with clear sight lines to all major buildings within the compound. Through her high-powered scope, Sarah could see guards moving around the perimeter. The compound consisted of 4 main buildings arranged around a central courtyard, with high walls providing protection from ground assault. Intelligence had indicated that Hassan typically used the largest building as his primary residence and command center. "I count 6 guards visible," Chen reported from her spotter position. 2 on the main gate, 2 patrolling the north wall, 1 on the roof of Building 3, 1 at the vehicle area. Sarah adjusted her scope settings for the 800-meter distance, calculating for wind speed and direction. The early morning air was relatively still, but she knew conditions could change rapidly as the sun rose and heated the surrounding terrain. "Secondary team, report your status," she radioed to Morrison's group positioned on the eastern ridge. "In position and ready," Morrison responded. "We have clear views of the rear exit routes and vehicle storage area." The waiting began. Intelligence suggested Hassan was likely to emerge around dawn for his morning prayers, providing the best opportunity for identification and elimination. Sarah settled into her shooting position, controlling her breathing and maintaining steady observation of the compound. As the sun crested the horizon, activity within the compound increased. More guards appeared, and Sarah could see movement within the buildings through open windows and doorways. Her patience was rewarded when a figure emerged from the main building that matched Hassan's description. "Possible target, Building 1 in trance," she whispered to Chen. Chen studied the figure through her spotting scope, comparing physical characteristics to the intelligence photographs. "Height and build match, but I can't confirm facial features from this angle." The figure walked across the courtyard toward a smaller building, his movements casual and unhurried. Sarah tracked him through her scope, waiting for a clearer view that would allow positive identification. In sniper operations, positive target identification was crucial to prevent civilian casualties and mission failure. "Target entering Building 2, Sarah reported. Maintain observation." 20 minutes later, the same figure emerged accompanied by 3 other men. This time, he turned toward their position, providing Chen with a clear view of his facial features. "Positive identification confirmed," Chen announced. "That's Ahmad Hassan." Sarah's pulse quickened as she adjusted her aim. Hassan was walking toward a vehicle in the compound's motor pool, apparently preparing to depart. This might be their only opportunity before he relocated to an unknown location. "All stations, this is Overwatch 1. Target is mobile, moving toward vehicles. Prepare for engagement." Hassan stopped beside a white SUV, speaking with one of his guards while another man loaded equipment into the vehicle. Sarah centered her crosshairs on Hassan's chest, accounting for the distance and minimal wind drift. "Wind is calm, range 800 meters, Chen provided the firing solution. Target is stationary." Sarah's finger moved to the trigger, applying steady pressure while controlling her breathing. Years of training had prepared her for this moment, but the weight of the mission and the scrutiny from her team added extra pressure. Just as she was about to fire, Hassan moved behind the SUV, using the vehicle as cover. Sarah cursed silently, maintaining her aim while waiting for him to emerge. Patience was a sniper's greatest virtue, but time was working against them. "Target is loading equipment, appears to be preparing for departure," Morrison reported from his position. Hassan emerged from behind the vehicle, but only for a few seconds before moving to the building entrance. Sarah had a brief opportunity to take the shot but decided against it due to the presence of other individuals who might be civilians. "Too many unknowns in the vicinity," she explained to her team. Waiting for clearer engagement opportunity. The next 30 minutes tested everyone's patience as Hassan moved in and out of buildings, never presenting a clear shot for more than a few seconds. Sarah could sense the tension building among her team members, but she maintained her discipline, refusing to take a hasty shot that might compromise the mission. Finally, Hassan walked into the center of the courtyard with only one guard accompanying him. He stopped to examine something on the ground, providing Sarah with the clear shot she had been waiting for. "I have the shot," she announced, settling into her firing position. "Confirmed clear shot," Chen responded. No other individuals in the immediate area. Sarah controlled her breathing, letting out half a breath and holding it while she applied pressure to the trigger. The rifle recoiled smoothly against her shoulder, and, through her scope, she saw Hassan collapse to the ground. "Target down," she reported, already chambering another round in case additional shots were necessary. Chaos erupted in the compound as guards rushed toward Hassan's position. Sarah maintained overwatch while Chen spotted for additional targets that might threaten their extraction route. Multiple guards responding to the courtyard area, Chen reported. "Count 7 individuals, all armed. Secondary team, what's your status?" Sarah radioed to Morrison's position. "We're observing increased activity at the rear of the compound. 3 vehicles are moving toward the back gate, possibly attempting to evacuate additional personnel." Sarah watched through her scope as guards attempted to provide medical aid to Hassan, but it was clear that her shot had been fatal. The target elimination phase of the mission was complete, but extraction would prove more challenging with the compound now fully alerted. "All stations, begin movement to extraction point Alpha," Sarah ordered. "Maintain noise discipline and use evasion route Bravo." The team began their careful withdrawal from the overwatch positions, moving through the rocky terrain toward their designated extraction point 3 kilometers away. The helicopter wouldn't arrive for another 2 hours, requiring them to establish a secure perimeter and wait while avoiding enemy patrols. As they moved through the hills, Sarah could hear the sound of vehicles and voices from the compound below. Hassan's security forces were organizing search parties, but their lack of knowledge about the team's position and extraction plan provided a significant advantage. After an hour of careful movement, the team reached the extraction point and established a defensive perimeter. Sarah positioned her rifle to provide overwatch while the others prepared for helicopter pickup. "Extraction in 60 minutes, she announced over the radio. "Maintain security and prepare for possible enemy contact." The sound of helicopters in the distance grew louder, but Sarah knew that enemy forces might also be using aircraft to search for them. Through her scope, she scanned the surrounding terrain for any signs of pursuit. Multiple vehicles approaching from the southeast, Park reported from his security position. Distance approximately 2 kilometers and closing. Sarah studied the approaching vehicles through her scope. 4 SUVs were moving along the valley road, but their direction suggested they might be heading toward the extraction point. If enemy forces had guessed their likely extraction location, the team could find itself in a serious firefight. "All stations, prepare for possible enemy contact," Sarah ordered. "Priority is protecting the extraction zone until helicopter arrival." The vehicles stopped approximately 1 kilometer from their position, and Sarah could see armed men dismounting and beginning to move up the hillside. Her team was outnumbered, but they held the high ground and superior training. "I count 12 individuals moving up the slope," she reported. "They appear to be conducting a search pattern rather than a direct assault." Chen had taken position as Sarah's spotter again, helping to identify threats and coordinate fire if necessary. The rest of the team was positioned to create overlapping fields of fire that would protect the landing zone. "Helicopter is 5 minutes out," came the radio call from their extraction aircraft. Sarah watched the approaching enemy forces through her scope, waiting to see if they would discover the team's position. The rocky terrain provided excellent concealment, but trained searchers might eventually locate them. One of the enemy soldiers moved to within 400 meters of their position, close enough that Sarah could see his face clearly through her scope. He stopped and appeared to be studying the ground, possibly looking for tracks or other signs of their passage. "Enemy soldier at 400 meters is conducting detailed search," she whispered to her team. "If he continues on his current path, he'll reach our position within 10 minutes. The sound of helicopter rotors grew louder as their extraction aircraft approached. Sarah faced a difficult decision: engage the enemy soldiers and reveal their position, or wait and hope they wouldn't be discovered before the helicopter arrived. The enemy soldier resumed his movement, heading directly toward their position. Sarah centered her crosshairs on his chest, preparing to engage if necessary to protect her team and ensure successful extraction. Just as she was about to fire, the helicopter appeared over the ridge behind them, providing a distraction that caused the enemy soldiers to look up rather than continue their ground search. The aircraft landed quickly, and Sarah's team moved toward it under covering fire from the helicopter's door gunners. "Move, move, move," Sarah ordered, providing overwatch as her team boarded the helicopter. The enemy soldiers opened fire as soon as they realized what was happening, but their rounds fell short of the landing zone. Sarah was last aboard, maintaining her sniper position until the final moment to ensure her team's safety. As the helicopter lifted off and flew toward friendly territory, Sarah reflected on the mission's success. Hassan had been eliminated, and her team was returning safely. The doubts and skepticism she had faced seemed irrelevant now that the mission was complete. Morrison moved closer to her in the helicopter, leaning in to speak over the rotor noise. "Nice shooting, Commander. That was a clean kill under pressure." The acknowledgement meant more than Sarah had expected. Coming from one of her harshest critics, it represented a shift in how she was perceived by the team. She had proven her capabilities under the ultimate test of combat operations. 3 weeks after returning from Syria, Sarah found herself facing an entirely different kind of challenge. The successful elimination of Ahmad Hassan had earned recognition from high-level command, but it had also attracted attention from media outlets eager to highlight the story of a female SEAL commander leading combat operations. Sarah sat in the base public affairs office, reviewing talking points for an upcoming interview with a military journalist. Colonel Hartford had made it clear that media engagement was now part of her responsibilities, whether she liked it or not. "The important thing is to stay focused on the mission and team accomplishments," advised Lieutenant Commander Jessica Walsh, the base public affairs officer. "Don't let them turn this into a story about gender politics or breaking barriers. Emphasize professional competence and team success." Sarah understood the delicate balance required. Any appearance of self-promotion could damage her credibility with the men under her command, but failing to engage with media attention could waste an opportunity to demonstrate women's capabilities in combat roles. The interview itself went smoothly, with Sarah providing measured responses about training, preparation, and teamwork. She deflected questions about facing discrimination and instead focused on the technical aspects of sniper operations and the importance of unit cohesion. However, the published article took a different approach than Sarah had hoped. The headline read "Female SEAL Commander Proves Critics Wrong with Perfect Shot," and the story emphasized her gender more than her professional achievements. While factually accurate, the framing made Sarah uncomfortable. Morrison approached her in the team room after the article was published online. His expression was thoughtful rather than confrontational, a change Sarah had noticed since their return from Syria. "Commander, I wanted to talk to you about something," he said, settling into the chair across from her desk. "What's on your mind, Chief?" Morrison paused, choosing his words carefully. "I owe you an apology. Before the Syria mission, I let my preconceptions affect my judgment. You handled that operation with skill and professionalism, and your leadership kept the team safe while accomplishing the objective." The admission surprised Sarah, though she was careful not to show it. Morrison was a proud man with 12 years of experience, and acknowledging his error couldn't have been easy. "I appreciate that, Chief. We're a team, and trust is essential for mission success. I'm glad we can move forward together." "There's something else," Morrison continued. "Some of the newer guys have been asking questions about advanced sniper techniques. Would you be willing to conduct some additional training sessions? Your expertise could really benefit the junior operators." This was exactly the kind of integration Sarah had hoped for, where her skills were recognized and utilized regardless of gender. "Absolutely. Let's set up a training schedule that works for everyone." Over the following weeks, Sarah conducted several training sessions covering advanced marksmanship, wind reading, and target acquisition in challenging conditions. The sessions were well attended and highly effective, with junior operators showing marked improvement in their scores. Petty Officer 3rd Class Marcus Thompson, one of the newest team members, approached Sarah after a particularly challenging long-range shooting exercise. Thompson was barely 22 years old, fresh from sniper school and eager to prove himself. "Commander, I've been struggling with wind calculation at distances over 600 meters," Thompson admitted. My shots are consistently off by several inches, and I can't figure out what I'm doing wrong. Sarah had noticed Thompson's frustration during the exercise. Let's work through it step by step. Wind reading is as much art as science, especially in mountainous terrain where wind patterns can be unpredictable. They spent the next hour on the range, with Sarah demonstrating techniques for reading environmental indicators and adjusting for varying wind conditions. Thompson's improvement was immediate and dramatic, his shots moving from scattered to tightly grouped around the target center. The key is patience, Sarah explained. Take time to observe the environment. Watch grass movement, dust patterns, even the behavior of birds or insects. They'll tell you what the wind is doing at different altitudes and distances. Word of Sarah's teaching ability spread throughout the SEAL community, and she began receiving requests for training assistance from other units. The base command was pleased with this development, as it demonstrated the value of having diverse perspectives and skills within special operations forces. However, not all feedback was positive. During a routine equipment inspection, Sarah overheard Gunner's Mate Second Class Robert Hayes making disparaging comments about political correctness and lowered standards to several junior enlisted personnel. Hayes had been with the unit longer than Sarah but had never progressed beyond his current rank due to disciplinary issues and attitude problems. His resentment toward her promotion was obvious and potentially harmful to unit morale. Sarah decided to address the situation directly rather than let it fester. She approached Hayes during his next duty shift, ensuring the conversation took place privately to avoid public confrontation. "Hayes, I need to speak with you about maintaining professional standards in this unit," she said, her tone firm but not hostile. Hayes straightened slightly but his expression remained defiant. "I'm not sure what you mean, Commander. I've been performing my duties according to regulations. Your technical performance is adequate, but your attitude toward unit leadership is unacceptable. Comments about political correctness and lowered standards undermine team cohesion and violate good order and discipline. With respect, Commander, I have the right to express my opinions." Sarah stepped closer, her voice dropping to a level that only Hayes could hear. "You have the right to your opinions, but you don't have the right to express them in ways that damage unit effectiveness. If I hear any more inappropriate comments, you'll find yourself explaining your attitude to the base command structure. Are we clear?" Hayes nodded reluctantly, understanding that Sarah was prepared to take formal disciplinary action if necessary. While the conversation didn't change his underlying attitudes, it established clear boundaries for acceptable behavior. The next major test of Sarah's leadership came when the unit was tasked with a high-priority mission to Iraq. Intelligence had identified a bomb-making facility operated by insurgents responsible for multiple attacks on coalition forces. The mission would require precision strikes on specific targets while avoiding civilian casualties in a heavily populated area. During the mission briefing, Sarah outlined a complex operation involving multiple sniper teams positioned around the target facility. The challenge was significant. The bomb-making operation was located in a residential area, with civilians living and working in adjacent buildings. "Our primary objective is the elimination of 3 high-value targets," Sarah explained, displaying satellite imagery on the briefing room screen. "Secondary objectives include the destruction of bomb-making materials and equipment without causing civilian casualties or collateral damage." Sergeant Park raised his hand. "Commander, what's our rules of engagement regarding armed individuals who aren't specifically identified as targets?" "Excellent question, Park. We engage only confirmed targets unless fired upon. Any armed individual who poses an immediate threat to team members is a legitimate target, but we must be certain of positive identification before engaging." The mission planning took several days, with Sarah and her team leaders working through multiple scenarios and contingency plans. The complexity required precise coordination between air support, ground teams, and multiple sniper positions. Morrison contributed valuable insights during the planning process, his experience with urban operations proving helpful in identifying potential challenges. The relationship between Sarah and Morrison had evolved into genuine professional respect, with both recognizing each other's strengths. "The approach routes are problematic," Morrison observed, studying the reconnaissance photographs. "Too much open ground between building positions. We'll need additional cover and concealment to reach our overwatch positions undetected. Sarah nodded, appreciating his tactical analysis. Agreed. I'm thinking we use the storm drainage system to move closer before transitioning to rooftop positions. It adds complexity but improves our concealment. Chen provided intelligence updates on target movement patterns, having analyzed surveillance footage from multiple sources. The primary targets follow fairly predictable schedules. Best engagement window appears to be between 0600 and 0700 hours when they conduct their morning inspection of the facility. The mission launch was scheduled for the following night, allowing time for final equipment checks and rehearsals. Sarah spent hours studying the target area, memorizing building layouts and identifying potential shooting positions. As she prepared her equipment, Sarah reflected on how much had changed since taking command of the unit. The initial skepticism and resistance had given way to professional acceptance and even admiration from most team members. Her success in Syria had proven her capabilities under pressure, but this new mission would test her leadership in an even more complex environment. The night before departure, Sarah received a call from her mother in Montana. The conversation was brief but meaningful, with her mother expressing pride in Sarah's accomplishments while urging caution in the dangerous work ahead. "Your father would have been so proud," her mother said, her voice thick with emotion. "He always knew you had the strength and skill to excel in whatever you chose to do." The words brought tears to Sarah's eyes, reminding her of the personal journey that had led to this moment. Every challenge overcome, every barrier broken, had been worth it to reach this level of professional achievement and recognition. The pre-mission briefing was thorough and professional, with each team member understanding their specific role and responsibilities. Sarah felt confident in the plan and her team's ability to execute it successfully, but she knew that urban operations always carried unexpected challenges. As the team prepared for helicopter transport to the insertion point, Sarah took a moment to observe her personnel. Morrison was checking communication equipment with his usual attention to detail. Chen was reviewing target photographs one final time. Thompson was nervously adjusting his gear, but his shooting skills had improved dramatically under Sarah's instruction. 5 minutes to insertion, the helicopter crew chief announced. Sarah ran through her mental checklist one final time, ensuring she had considered every aspect of the mission plan. Leadership in combat required balancing confidence with humility, decisiveness with flexibility. She was ready for whatever challenges awaited in Iraq. The helicopter lifted off into the night sky, carrying Sarah and her team toward another test of their skills and training. The successful completion of this mission would further establish her credibility as a combat leader, while failure could set back progress for women in special operations roles. As they flew toward the target area, Sarah felt the familiar rush of adrenaline mixed with focused determination. This was what she had trained for, what she had sacrificed for, and what she was determined to accomplish with distinction. The helicopter insertion into Baghdad went smoothly, with Sarah's team reaching their initial staging area without detection. The urban environment presented challenges entirely different from their previous Syria mission. Instead of rocky hills and sparse vegetation, they now faced a maze of concrete buildings, narrow streets, and civilian activity even during nighttime hours. Sarah led her team through the abandoned industrial district toward their target area, using predetermined routes that intelligence had identified as offering the best concealment. The bomb-making facility was located in a converted warehouse surrounded by apartment buildings and small shops, complicating their approach and potential engagement scenarios. "Overwatch teams, report your status," Sarah whispered into her radio as they reached the staging area. "Overwatch 2 in position on Building 7, Morrison reported from his rooftop position 3 blocks from the target. Clear sight lines to the eastern approach." "Overwatch 3 establishing position on Building 12, Chen radioed from the southern approach. No enemy activity visible at this time." Sarah and Thompson moved toward their assigned position on the building directly overlooking the target facility. The climb to the rooftop required careful movement through a partially damaged structure, but they reached their position without compromise. Through her scope, Sarah could see the target building clearly. Intelligence reports indicated that the bomb-making operation used the ground floor for assembly while storing materials in the basement. The 3 high-value targets lived in apartments above the facility, making positive identification crucial. Primary overwatch and position, she reported to her team. Beginning observation of target building. The waiting began again, but this time the environment was far more complex. Street lights, vehicle traffic, and civilian movement all created variables that hadn't existed in the Syrian desert. Sarah had to constantly adjust her scope settings to account for changing light conditions and potential obstacles. At 05:45 hours, movement began appearing in the target building. Sarah watched through her scope as lights came on in several rooms, and figures began moving behind windows. The intelligence timeline appeared accurate, with the targets maintaining their predicted morning routine. Movement in target building, she reported. Multiple individuals visible through windows, but no positive identification yet. Thompson was serving as her spotter for this mission, having earned the position through his improved performance during training. His young eyes and steady nerves made him an ideal partner for the precision work required. "I see 3 individuals on the second floor," Thompson reported through his spotting scope. "One matches the height and build of target Alpha." Sarah adjusted her position to get a clearer view through the second floor windows. The targets were moving around inside the apartment, but the window glass and interior lighting made positive identification challenging. "We need clearer visual confirmation before engagement," she decided. Continue observation. 20 minutes later, their patience was rewarded when all 3 targets emerged from the building and walked toward the bomb-making facility entrance. Sarah had clear views of their faces, allowing her to compare them with the intelligence photographs. Positive identification on all 3 targets, she confirmed. They're entering the facility building. This created a new tactical challenge. The targets were now inside the bomb-making facility, surrounded by potentially dangerous materials that could cause massive secondary explosions if struck by rifle fire. Sarah had to consider the risks to surrounding civilians and her own team. All stations, targets are now inside the facility. Assess your firing positions and potential collateral damage. Morrison's voice crackled over the radio. "From my position, I have clear shots if they exit the building, but no sightlines inside the facility." Chen reported similar limitations from her position. The tactical situation required patience and careful timing, waiting for the targets to expose themselves without risking civilian casualties or uncontrolled explosions. Sarah watched through her scope as the targets moved around inside the facility. Through the windows, she could see them examining what appeared to be bomb-making equipment and materials. This confirmed intelligence reports about the location's purpose and importance. 45 minutes after entering the facility, 2 of the targets emerged and began walking toward a vehicle parked in the adjacent alley. Sarah immediately centered her crosshairs on the lead target, preparing for engagement. "I have clear shots on targets Alpha and Bravo," she reported. "Target Charlie remains inside the facility." "Take the shots," came the authorization from the mission commander. Sarah controlled her breathing and squeezed the trigger, watching target Alpha collapse immediately. She quickly shifted to target Bravo, who had begun running toward cover after hearing the first shot. Her second round caught him before he reached the building wall. "Targets Alpha and Bravo down," she reported, already scanning for target Charlie. The third target appeared at the facility entrance, armed with an assault rifle and firing wildly in the direction he believed the shots had originated. His round struck the building wall several meters below Sarah's position, indicating poor marksmanship under stress. Sarah aimed carefully at target Charlie, but civilian pedestrians had appeared on the street behind him, creating a dangerous backdrop for her shot. She held her fire, waiting for a clearer engagement opportunity. "Target Charlie is armed and dangerous, but civilians are in the background," she reported. Waiting for clear shot. The situation became more complex as additional armed men began emerging from nearby buildings. Apparently, the bomb-making facility had more security personnel than intelligence had indicated. Sarah counted at least 6 additional hostile targets, all armed and moving to engage her team. Multiple hostile contacts emerging from surrounding buildings, Morrison reported from his position. "Count 8 armed individuals, possibly more." Sarah found herself facing a decision that would test all her training and leadership experience. The primary mission objectives had been partially accomplished with 2 targets eliminated, but target Charlie remained alive and dangerous. Additionally, her team was now facing a much larger enemy force than anticipated. "All stations, we have a developing situation," she announced over the radio. "Multiple hostile contacts, unknown numbers. Priority is target Charlie elimination and team extraction." Target Charlie had taken cover behind a concrete barrier but was still attempting to coordinate the defensive response. Sarah could see him through her scope, directing other armed men to positions where they could engage her team. The tactical situation required immediate action. Sarah identified target Charlie's position behind the concrete barrier and calculated the angle needed to engage him effectively. The shot would be challenging due to the limited exposure and range, but it was achievable. She fired her third round, watching through her scope as target Charlie collapsed behind the barrier. "Target Charlie eliminated," she reported with satisfaction. However, the elimination of the primary targets had only escalated the overall situation. The remaining hostile forces were now actively hunting for Sarah's team positions, and several were moving toward the buildings where her operators were located. "Enemy forces are advancing on multiple positions," Chen reported from the southern Overwatch. "I count 4 individuals moving toward Building 12. Sarah realized that her team was facing a coordinated response from a larger enemy force than anticipated. The mission had evolved from a precision strike operation to a combat engagement requiring different tactics and immediate extraction. "All stations, prepare for close combat engagement," she ordered. "Use all necessary force to protect team positions and prevent enemy approach." Through her scope, Sarah could see enemy fighters attempting to enter the building where Morrison's team was positioned. She quickly engaged 2 of them with precisely placed shots, stopping their advance and forcing the others to seek cover. "Overwatch 1 engaging multiple targets," she reported while chambering fresh rounds. "Enemy advance has been halted at Building 7. Thompson was providing excellent support as her spotter, identifying targets and helping coordinate fire with the other team positions. His training under Sarah's guidance was proving valuable under actual combat conditions. 3 enemy fighters approaching from the east," Thompson reported. "Range 400 meters and closing on our position." Sarah shifted her aim toward the new threat, identifying the lead fighter through her scope. These men appeared more organized and better equipped than typical insurgent forces, suggesting they might be dealing with a more significant operation than intelligence had indicated. She engaged the lead fighter with a center mass shot, watching him collapse while his companions scattered for cover. The precision shooting was having a psychological effect on the enemy forces, making them cautious about exposing themselves. "Enemy forces are taking defensive positions," Morrison reported. "They appear to be waiting for reinforcements rather than continuing their assault." This gave Sarah's team a brief opportunity to consolidate their positions and prepare for extraction. The mission objectives had been accomplished with all 3 high-value targets eliminated, but the unexpected enemy response meant they needed immediate evacuation. "Extract helicopter is 10 minutes out," the radio crackled with an update from their support aircraft. Sarah continued providing overwatch while her team prepared for movement to the extraction point. She had eliminated 8 enemy fighters during the engagement, demonstrating the precision and effectiveness that had made her reputation as a sniper. "All stations, begin movement to extraction point Bravo," she ordered. "Maintain fire superiority during movement." The team's withdrawal was conducted under Sarah's covering fire, with her engaging any enemy forces that attempted to interfere with their movement. Her accurate shooting kept hostile forces pinned down while her operators moved safely toward the helicopter landing zone. As the extraction helicopter approached, Sarah could see additional enemy vehicles arriving in the target area. The bomb-making facility had apparently been more important than intelligence reports indicated, and enemy forces were responding accordingly. "Multiple enemy vehicles arriving at target area," she reported. "Estimate 20 additional hostile personnel." The helicopter landing was conducted under fire, with Sarah providing precision overwatch while her team boarded the aircraft. She was again last aboard, maintaining her sniper position until the final moment to ensure team safety. As the helicopter lifted off, Sarah could see the destroyed bomb-making facility below and the scattered enemy forces that had attempted to protect it. The mission had been successful despite the unexpected enemy response, and all team members were returning safely. Morrison moved close to Sarah in the helicopter, speaking over the rotor noise. "Commander, that was exceptional shooting under pressure. 12 confirmed enemy kills including all 3 primary targets. Outstanding leadership and marksmanship." The acknowledgement from Morrison and the obvious respect from her entire team marked a complete transformation from the skepticism she had faced when taking command. Her abilities had been tested under the most demanding conditions, and she had proven herself worthy of the trust placed in her. Upon return to base, Sarah's mission performance was recognized with recommendations for commendation and promotion consideration. More importantly, her success had opened doors for other qualified women seeking similar positions in Special Operations Forces. The mocking voices and skeptical looks had been replaced by professional respect and recognition. Sarah Mitchell had proven that excellence in military service knows no gender boundaries, that skill and dedication matter more than prejudice and preconceptions. Her rifle had indeed done the talking, speaking with the clear voice of precision and competence under pressure.